It's done. David Njoku is officially gone. The Cleveland Browns just pulled the trigger on a trade that nobody thought would actually happen this fast, and the return they got is absolutely shocking the entire NFL. This isn't a rebuild move. This isn't selling off assets for future picks. This is something completely different. And when you see what the Browns got in exchange for their Pro Bowl tight end, you're going to understand why Andrew Berry made this deal within 48 hours of Njoku demanding out. The team that landed Njoku is already being called Super Bowl favorites after this move. The player Cleveland got back is either a genius acquisition or the biggest gamble Berry has ever made. And the ripple effects of this trade are already tearing through the league, with 3 more blockbuster deals reportedly in the works because of what just happened. This is the trade that changes everything. February 9th, 2026, 3:47 p.m. Eastern Time. Adam Schefter breaks the news on Twitter that sends the NFL world into absolute chaos. Breaking! The Cleveland Browns have traded Pro Bowl tight end David Njoku to the Las Vegas Raiders in exchange for wide receiver Davante Adams and a 2027 third-round pick, per sources. The reaction is instantaneous. Social media explodes. NFL analysts scramble to get on air. Fans of both teams are flooding message boards trying to process what just happened, because this trade is massive in ways that go far beyond just swapping 2 players. Let me break down every layer of this blockbuster deal, because there's so much more happening here than meets the eye. First, let's talk about what the Las Vegas Raiders just got. David Njoku is a 29-year-old Pro Bowl tight end in the prime of his career. Last season, he had 76 catches for 968 yards and 7 touchdowns, despite playing with an inconsistent quarterback situation in Cleveland. He's physical, he can block, he can stretch the field vertically, and he's one of the most reliable pass catchers in the league. The Raiders have been aggressively building their roster over the past few months with one goal in mind: drafting Shedeur Sanders and giving him the perfect infrastructure to succeed immediately. They've already made moves to upgrade their offensive line. They brought in a new offensive coordinator known for developing young quarterbacks, and now they just added an elite tight end who can be a safety valve for a rookie quarterback. According to sources close to the Raiders organization, General Manager Tom Telesco has been obsessed with the idea of replicating what the Los Angeles Chargers did when they drafted Justin Herbert. The Chargers surrounded Herbert with weapons like Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, and Austin Eckler, giving him every possible advantage as a rookie. Telesco wants to do the same thing with Shedeur Sanders. Adding David Njoku is a huge step in that direction. If the Raiders draft Sanders with a top 5 pick in April, he'll immediately have one of the best tight ends in football to target, plus other weapons the Raiders are building around him. It's a legitimate plan to compete immediately rather than going through a multi-year rebuild. But here's where it gets interesting. The Raiders didn't just give up draft picks to get Njoku. They gave up Davante Adams. Davante Adams is 33 years old. He's one of the greatest wide receivers of his generation, 6-time Pro Bowler, 3-time first-team All-Pro. He spent the first 8 years of his career in Green Bay catching passes from Aaron Rodgers, then reunited with Derek Carr in Las Vegas in 2022. But Adams is aging. His production has declined slightly over the past 2 years, and the Raiders are in a full rebuild mode. Trading Adams makes sense for Las Vegas if they're truly committed to building around a rookie quarterback. Adams' contract is expensive, he's got maybe 2 or 3 elite years left, and he doesn't fit the timeline of a team that's drafting a quarterback and won't be competing for a championship until 2027 or 2028 at the earliest.
But for the Cleveland Browns, acquiring Davante Adams is either the smartest move Andrew Berry has ever made or the most desperate. Let's look at why this could be genius. The Browns' biggest offensive problem over the past 3 years has been the lack of elite wide receiver talent. They've had Amari Cooper, who's solid but aging, and a bunch of mid-tier guys who can't consistently win one-on-one matchups. Adding Davante Adams instantly gives Cleveland the best wide receiver they've had in decades. Even at 33 years old, Adams is still elite. Last season in Las Vegas, he had 103 catches for 1,144 yards and 8 touchdowns. He's a route-running master, he has insane hands, he can beat any coverage, and if you pair him with Amari Cooper, the Browns suddenly have one of the most dangerous receiving duos in the NFL. If Deshaun Watson somehow returns to form in 2026 after his suspension, or if Malik Willis develops into a legitimate starter, having Davante Adams as a target could completely change the offense. Adams is the kind of player who makes quarterbacks look better just by being on the field. But here's the massive risk. Davante Adams is expensive. His contract has 2 years remaining and pays him over $35 million per year. The Browns are already in salary cap hell because of Deshaun Watson's contract. Adding Adams' salary to the books makes their cap situation even worse. And Adams is 33 years old. There's no guarantee he stays healthy or maintains his elite level for the next 2 years. If he declines or gets hurt, the Browns just traded a 29-year-old Pro Bowl tight end in his prime for an aging wide receiver who might only give them one good season. This is Andrew Berry gambling that the Browns' championship window is right now, that they can compete in 2026 and 2027 if they maximize their offensive weapons. But if Watson continues to struggle, if the offense doesn't improve, if Adams declines, this trade will be remembered as another disaster in a long line of Browns mistakes. The reaction around the league has been split down the middle. Supporters of the trade argue that the Browns needed to do something bold. They can't keep running it back with the same mediocre roster and expecting different results. Adding Davante Adams gives them a legitimate chance to have an elite offense, and if it works, nobody will care that they traded Njoku. Critics of the trade argue that the Browns are doubling down on a sinking ship. They're adding expensive veterans to a team that's fundamentally broken organizationally. Davante Adams doesn't fix the coaching instability, the ownership dysfunction, or the Deshaun Watson disaster. It's just putting a fresh coat of paint on a house that's rotting from the inside. Former NFL executives have weighed in on both sides. One former GM told ESPN, "I love the aggression from Cleveland. They're saying we're not rebuilding, we're trying to win now. That's the mentality you need to compete in the AFC." But another former GM told The Athletic, "This is classic Browns. They keep making short-term moves to save face instead of committing to a real rebuild. Njoku is younger, cheaper, and just as valuable in today's NFL as Adams. This trade doesn't make sense unless you're desperate." And that word, desperate, is being used a lot to describe the Cleveland Browns right now. Meanwhile, David Njoku's reaction to the trade has been telling. Within hours of the deal being announced, Njoku posted on social media thanking Browns fans for their support over the past 7 years and expressing excitement about joining the Raiders. He didn't mention the Browns organization, the front office, or any of his former coaches, just the fans. That subtle dig didn't go unnoticed. Njoku wanted out, he got out, and he's thrilled to be going to a team that's building something, rather than constantly trying to fix something. The Raiders, meanwhile, are celebrating. Their fan base is ecstatic. They just added a Pro Bowl tight end without giving up any draft capital in 2026, which means they can still take Shedeur Sanders or another top quarterback prospect without sacrificing future picks. It's a win-win for Las Vegas.
But here's where this trade gets even crazier. Because the David Njoku blockbuster is reportedly just the first domino to fall. According to multiple NFL insiders, the Browns are now fielding calls from other teams about additional players. Amari Cooper's name has been mentioned as a potential trade candidate now that the Browns have Davante Adams. The logic is that Cooper and Adams play similar roles. Both are aging veterans, and the Browns could flip Cooper for additional draft picks or younger assets. There are also rumors, unconfirmed but circulating, that the Browns are listening to offers for Myles Garrett. This would be nuclear. Garrett is a two-time unanimous Defensive Player of the Year, the face of the franchise, and arguably the best defensive player in football. Trading him would signal a complete organizational teardown. But sources close to the situation say that if the Browns get a godfather offer, something like 3 first-round picks and a young star player, they would at least consider it. Because with Deshaun Watson's contract destroying their cap space, with the team stuck in mediocrity, and with ownership facing pressure to make drastic changes, everything is reportedly on the table. The NFL trade deadline isn't until November, but the groundwork for multiple blockbuster deals is being laid right now in February 2026, and it all started with David Njoku officially leaving Cleveland. As of this moment, the Browns roster looks completely different than it did 48 hours ago. They lost their best tight end and gained an aging but elite wide receiver. They're in salary cap hell, but trying to compete immediately. They're listening to trade offers on multiple star players while also trying to convince the fan base that they can still win. It's chaos, it's dysfunction, it's the Cleveland Browns operating exactly the way they always have, lurching from one crisis to the next without a clear long-term plan.
But here's the wild card that nobody's talking about enough. If Davante Adams plays at an elite level in 2026, if the Browns somehow figure out the quarterback situation, if Myles Garrett drags the defense to another top 5 finish, Cleveland could actually be dangerous. They'd have Adams and Cooper as receivers, Nick Chubb returning from injury as the running back, an offensive line that's being rebuilt with Bill Callahan coaching it, a defense led by the best player in football. On paper, the pieces are there. But the Browns have looked good on paper before, and it's never worked out. The difference between potential and results is execution, coaching, culture, and luck. And Cleveland has historically had none of those things. The David Njoku trade is officially done. He's a Las Vegas Raider. Davante Adams is a Cleveland Brown. And the entire NFL is watching to see if this blockbuster move is the beginning of something great, or the latest chapter in the never-ending disaster that is the Cleveland Browns.